Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Next Generation's First Generation. I'm your host, Sascha Shouties, and we also have Patrick Delmore, our wonderful co host. Hello,
Hey,
Patrick.
everybody.
Yay, today is a very exciting episode. This episode is well renowned throughout Star Trek and larger pop culture. This is the episode known as Picard's Flute. I mean, the inner light. What's really fun about this episode is that the whole Picard's flute thing. I remember it being moved when I was a child back watching this. This was back in June 1992, I believe, when this came out, and it always just kind of stuck with me. And I know that I was a very emotional child, and that I was very sensitive to just heartwarming things. And I remember hearing his penny flute song, and it always just kind of stuck with me. And then, of course, as pop culture became more interwoven moving forward in the 2000s and then in the 2010s and now where everything is accessible, I just became shocked that out of all the things, like, Picard's flute is out there and a known thing. It's almost kind of like if we heard about Luke's lightsaber, it's Picard's flute.
Mm-hmm. This I didn't get to see this episode until 1994 when they did the run up to the series finale with like the top 10 best storylines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was number 4. But this is like not only one of the best Next Generation episodes, it's one of the best Star Trek episodes. And it's because you could have done this on the original series, you could have done it on Next Generation, you could have done it on Deep Space Nine, you could have done it on Voyager. I don't think it works. Oh, and Enterprise could have done the same story, in fact.
Yes.
Any of the new Trek, it doesn't really work in, but any one of the captains could have had this very same adventure. And I think we'll try to figure out as we watch this, does it matter, and do things change because it's Picard that's having this experience?
Well, it wouldn't work with New Trek because New Trek does a lot of post-action decompression or analysis, where you'll have 3 or 4 people get together and talk about their feelings of what just happened, whereas Picard doesn't do that.
No.
He plays it pretty close to his chest. So without further ado, this is best analysis that we can do during the episode. Please queue up your viewing device. By the time you hear this, Netflix will have long since lost Star Trek, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So this is either Paramount or DVD or Pirate Bay, whatever you got. We'll try the best to keep it all together. We'll give you the countdown. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, and play.
We had a very CGI looking Enterprise flying in here. They are going to check out a mysterious object in space. You got to love how it's just right on, although they actually do take the time to say that once they found it, it attached itself to them. So it is kind of staying in orbit with the ship. That's funny because when we learn about this culture and their technology, that they are able to build a probe that can stay in orbit with another body when they couldn't really take humans to space at all. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, that's the beauty of sci-fi. You can just kind of make things work for your situation. Whenever I see this probe, I keep thinking, oh, down goes Picard. That's really good seizure acting right there.
Oh, yeah. Very, very good.
Whenever I see that probe, though, I want to think that it's like a necklace or a pendant.
Because it is a necklace and a pendant.
She wears it? Oh, does she? Oh, yes. I had no idea.
Yep.
Well, there we go.
So Picard has found himself in the memories of a dying world. They basically have constructed this for him to experience the culture of this planet. And it's not a culture that is significantly different from any other culture that he's ever seen. This does kind of goes into not very deeply Frontiers of the Heart, which is where Picard is on the TV show Picard in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have easily done this, like I said, with Kirk or with Cisco or with Janeway, putting them in this exact situation, and none of them would have behaved, I don't think, differently. And as we watch this, we could try to figure out where Picard may have done something that Janeway wouldn't have, or that Kirk wouldn't have.
You could have also done this episode with O'Brien. Maybe
yes.
maybe not the Enterprise O'Brien, but definitely the DS9 O'Brien, because you could see the first third of the episode of him refusing to believe that he's stuck there, trying to get out and missing his family, and then reluctantly starting a new one.
Yeah, well, O'Brien kind of had this when he was sent to when he was in the prison for like 30 seconds. And it was a different kind of a thing because it had to do with, is this story about this guy that I killed in prison something that they programmed in, or did I get pushed so far that I did it?
Yeah.
Like for this one, you could ask, like, is it part of this program that Picard, the character that Picard is playing, waits 3 years to get his wife pregnant, or could, say, Kirk, or I don't think Cisco would have ever slept with her.
No. Well, he slept with Dax in the Mirror Universe because that was a life or death situation.
That's true. But it was also Dax.
Yeah, true.
Janeway, obviously I think they would have curtailed the program. So it was a female scientist with a husband. And I think Janeway would have definitely slept with him. Archer would have slept with him, but Picard waits 3 years. And I wonder if that. Go ahead, Sasha.
I want to say right here in this scene, I'm sorry to interrupt you because where you're going is really fascinating. But the female character here, the wife, what is her name? The actress name, Eline, Eline. She is being so patient with him. Imagine if your partner broke from a fever, woke up, and then had no memory and thought that they were a prisoner and were highly paranoid of you. And that she's taking this really well.
Yeah. But it's the probe too. It's them, he's watching a program that they created for someone to find of what that culture was like.
And his entire experience is tailored to him. So some things may seem a little unrealistic because it's 100% for the participant and not for the community when you think about it.
And I love this about, here we are at the end of the world, but we're going to nurture this tree.
There's a really good poem. Your tree building ceremony here reminds me of a poem called The End of the World Bake Sale, where it's a community potluck where everybody kind of brings out the tables and chairs and picnic tables and sets up more or less a free bakery giveaway, and they're all sitting in the field eating snacks while they watch the world destroy itself.
I mean, that's probably not too far off from what'll happen. We've got this year is the Oscars of the Don't Look Up, where we have a movie about Earth about to be destroyed by an asteroid and just what people do in response to it. And this in this world, they do bump up against bureaucracy in, I think, a very realistic way, where they get to the point where it's like, yeah, we know our sun's going to go nova, and we're just there. We just don't want everybody to panic.
They need hope.
As simple as that. Yeah.
So once you've accepted you're going to die, how can you make things the most comfortable until you do?
And there's a good movie about that called what is it? Like Melancholia, about a planet passing too close to Earth for anybody to survive. But there's like a wedding right before. And there's a lot of people that, theorize that, maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe that's not what's going to happen. This, I like that we don't see a societal pushback against that. It's not a society divided.
Oh, it's a society unified, if anything.
Yep.
Well, this program is supposed to be an epitaph, more or less. So they're going to show United Front. What you are watching right now is what the society wanted you to experience when it comes to understanding who they are and what their final days were. The question I have for you, Pat, is when you first watched this, if you can remember back to the very first time you saw this episode, I can't do this. This is why I ask you. Do you remember if you knew he was inside the probe, more or less, or just it was a complete scene change and you were a little disoriented?
I assumed it had something to do with the probe. They cut back to the Enterprise eventually because of all of the time jumps. I understand why they did that. It would have been, I think this could have been a better episode if they never cut back to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
If you just had something else to make the transition. I think they were just worried about how to make the time transitions happen because there's so many time jumps. I think there's 3 or 4 great big jumps in time for when he's there, which probably there's another world you could do this storyline in, which is Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. This storyline would work great in Doctor Who. The only difference is they landed the TARDIS on a hill, and for whatever reason, they can't launch. So they have to fix the local problem before they can fix their ship.
And they're there for 70 years doing that and become part of the community.
In fact, that's how Rory the Roman kind of came around.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a follower of the Trek. So Picard is very upset. He's disoriented. He wants to. This is a Picard where he has lost control and he doesn't know what to do. And he's not too happy about it. And Picard is the kind of person where he has to be in control because I highly suspect that Picard feels that if he is not inserted into a situation where he's an active participant, he feels unsafe. So now he's a passive participant, and that probably bothers him as the character Picard, because then he is a victim of whatever happens in the environment. And that's exactly what this probes program is designed to do. It's like, we're going to have you endure our experience.
And if it had been a deal where somebody said to him, "Hey, we discovered this probe, and here's what it's going to do. Do you want to go inside for anthropological reasons?" He would have jumped at the chance, but he also would have kind of treated it like the Kobayashi Maru, where he would have been like, "I'm going to figure out a way to get it so that this society is saved."
Yeah.
And instead, he does it, like a regular person does. He's like, we could make, stuff that pulls moisture out of the atmosphere, which the ruling party does not want them to do on a large scale. Because I feel like that might actually take from water that people already have. It's interesting. Like we see that they're in a drought and are rationing water, but we're not seeing the health effects of that, really.
Not yet, no. Well, I was about to say you don't really see any larger people, but that's not true, because Bataille, Jean-Luc's future friend in this, he's a pretty husky guy.
Yeah. It's weird to see him without his walrus mustache too.
Who, Bataille?
Yeah, that actor.
Richard renal
Yeah.
renal failure. Oh my goodness. What is this?
And here is the flute.
Oh yes.
Which could you imagine that, you're given that exercise sometimes as a kid, like, if you could save only one thing from Earth, and the idea would be like everybody gets to pick something. And this is, they really only save two things. They save the memories of this scientist, and they save that flute. Mm-hmm. That's it. And the memories of the scientist, only one person gets them. It's never played again. So imagine how hard of a choice it was to do that, to be like, the most important thing about our society that we can think of is that flute. And there's your necklace.
Oh, okay. I thought he was about to grab her boob for a sec.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
No.
Yeah, there's the necklace. Okay. I have to be clear that I haven't seen this episode in about 10 years. This is the first time in a long time since I've watched it.
It's been about that long since I've watched it.
Now that I've asked you the question, I'm thinking back to my own response, and I remember now being disoriented for the first third of the episode until they do the cutback. And I'm immediately reminded of the Red Dwarf episodes where they run into the despair squid, and the hallucination is that the entire crew are stuck in this VR video game, and they're just hiding out until the statute of limitations blows over on whatever crimes they have. And the simulation they were stuck in was living on Red Dwarf for all those years.
Yep, Dwayne Dibley.
Yeah, Dwayne Dibley. And I think that episode came out right about the same time, because I remember watching Red Dwarf in 1992 for sure. So I think that episode was already out there. And the thoughts that keep coming back to this episode, there are two really big veins here. The first vein is, if Earth was dying, if mankind was dying, we don't say the United States was dying. We don't say that the EU or XYZ countries are dying. We say, mankind, Earth is effed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that the UN would come together to put together an epitaph, but what would they write down? And the first thing that comes to mind is the human condition, because each culture can kind of draw together similarities in the human condition, the birth, life, death cycle, and all the social units that come with that.
Unfortunately, I think what we have is out there already, which is Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. I think when humanity passes, and I hope there are people alive in 100 years who are watching Star Trek: The Next Generation and possibly even listening to us talk. I am sadly not somebody who believes that's the future. I don't think that humanity will exist in 100 years. But our garbage will be in space for a long time. And those Voyager probes can be found.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be stuff to remember us by. And it'll the history of the 20th century won't all be, the 21st century won't really all be there. But sorry, I'm getting really melancholic now. I mean, this is the sort of scene that I would want to have, would be, a town where everybody got along and liked each other.
There is a French anthropological study of where they kept diaries and log entries of a town from several family members and people for 150 years and put it all together in one book. And that more or less is a snapshot there, a microcosm of what you're describing. So the way we see humanity's death today, and how there's going to be stuff around for people to clue in what we're doing, even if a long shot someone encounters the Voyager probes and, you know, kind of dissects our entire society from just those gold discs and the technology that the probe was built on. Yes, I feel pretty good about that. That seems, though it might be a long shot, it's more realistic than what we're seeing here. And here's why. This probe, what we find out at the end of the episode, is designed to only engage once. It goes inert after it makes its contact with one person, which seems like, why would you do that? It's like someone builds a hand grenade into the Voyager probe, so as soon as you open it, it explodes and all that information is lost. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's you would want this program to be modular so it can be played over and over again. You know, anthropology students, this might actually be an option where you go into your futuristic Federation school and they say, would you like to sign up for a perceived 30-year anthropological experience? You'll wake up in about 5 minutes, but you'll wake up with about 30 years of memories as a fully inclusive inhabitant of this society. Can you imagine the resource that would be?
It would be huge. And I think once the report came into Starfleet that existed, one, there'd be a huge corps of engineers trying to rebuild it. And two, there would be people that would be going to, you know, the Andorians, the Vulcans, the Tellarites, stuff, going like, hey, you guys need to have this for, you know, species showing up like outside of the galaxy, just to help diplomatic relations and show them, you know, what your society is.
Mm-hmm. So I do think
it would be optional. It wouldn't be an invasive thing, but you'd want to have it.
Yeah, that kind of goes back earlier to the whole, do you consent to 30 years worth of memories versus just zapping you drop on the floor? Because I about the second or third time watching this through when I was still a young boy, I thought, what if they happened to cross a prison ship or a lonely senile cargo captain who just didn't give a flying F, or a psychopath who attempted to murder people in this community and totally missed the point or disrupts the evolution of what's going on? This probe was very lucky to have encountered Picard, who is a scientist and an archaeologist, and he's kind of a Renaissance man, more or less. They couldn't have picked a better person to encounter in their first one chance. And why Picard? I mean, why not Data or Geordi or just some random person walking down a corridor who just collapsed?
I don't think it would work on Data. Geordi would be interesting because just like the last episode, I think he would have his eyes back. He would be, you know, a regular inhabitant, but his experience would not be all that different to Picard's, nor would Riker's, and really anybody on the ship except possibly Worf, who would want to, you know, straight up challenge the guy that's saying you can't do the atmospheric reclamation.
Mm-hmm.
Worf would be heavily like, no, we need to get water to save the society. We can't do it with rationing. He'd try, doing kind of factionalization against, like, do we know how much water other people on this planet have? Stuff like that.
Yeah, Worf would take it to scary places. I've been just kind of thinking of some of the things, and I really think that he would transform that society into an autocracy, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Where it's
if the probe allowed him to do that.
True. I did want to say I love how the architecture looks very Southwest, by the way.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, one of the reasons why the civilizations and societies in the American Southwest just disappeared was because of a prolonged mega drought. And there's another one happening right now, by the way. And if you've ever looked at Lake Mead, look up on what's happening in the last 20 years around Lake Mead. You'll be very surprised. But this happens. Change of an environment destroys societies, and we're watching a story about this. But what's odd is that that's just background music to a man who's middle-aged who wants to start a family with his wife.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to see the conversation between Picard and his wife talking about the consequences of bringing children into a dying world.
A lot of people are having that talk now, and it kind of comes up with his grandson at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's like, this kid isn't gonna live too much past today. But it's a scary conversation to have. It's a real conversation people are having right now, and have had for a long time, when the fear was, that war would destroy us all. And that fear is back again.
I hate to say this, Pat. So I was born in 1979. You were just a couple of years later, and I am tired of living through civilization changing events. I'm done with it. It's like I can understand one or two, but it seems like every 2 or 3 years some huge crazy thing is happening, like that tsunami that happened that killed like 300,000 people back in the early 2000s. The crazy hurricanes are having, freaking 9/11 and war, and just the culture of forever wars.
Yeah, we have Chernobyl, we have 3 Mile Island, but our parents and our grandparents all had stuff like that, because geological time, runs slowly. So our grandparents had the Depression, they had World War II. Most of them lived through the assassinations of the Kennedys and King, and
they had their strife too. And I think that's something that we forget, because as kids growing up in the 90s, we're vaguely aware of it. I remember back in the 90s, people are still asking, where were you when Kennedy was shot?
Mm-hmm.
And now that just seems like a really strange question to ask. Usually people have their 9/11 story.
Yeah. I mean, Kennedy is still only 59 years ago as of this recording.
Oh, wow.
Which is not that. I mean, it'll be 60 years next year. Scary to think.
So to get back to the episode, Picard they just celebrated their second child, or
yes,
is this grandchild?
This is child number 2.
Okay, there's the daughter right there. Great child actor. I do have to say the children in this episode are not following the standard Star Trek cutesy, fluffy, doll-like kid. It's just, there's a kid. This looks like a real kid. They're not even acting that much. They're just like, don't look at the camera. You're at a party listening to your parents. I've been to enough parties to know is like, that's how a shy kid would act.
Yeah.
Right there. Oh, she's no lady, tromping through the hills every day with her dad, digging up samples, insisting on collecting all sorts of crazy things.
That's the falsehood of this, is that it's like, yes, even in this ancient civilization, they had a hard gender binary, just like.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember the bias, whether it's intentional or not, passes on from the writers. This is actually why I like television movies a lot more than I like books. Books are fascinating, but you have to find the right author to tell the story.
Yeah.
Whereas productions like plays, theater, even musicals, anything television or screen based is going to have a large group of collaborative folks that
That's
have
very true.
input. And even if it's one person kind of ramrodding the script, you're still going to have a collection of peers saying, hey, no, this is effed. Like there's a lot more peer review that comes in it. So we are demonstrating now that the probe is in control of Picard. They tried some techie thing to disconnect him, and it upset his vital signs. And also parallel in the simulation, he fell down and had a little bit of oop-de-doo.
Yep.
Now I want to
And
ask.
a time jump.
Yep. So there's daughter and Picard. Now, do you think they aged Picard decently? We know what he looks like now at this age. What do you think?
I wish he had long hair like that. Yeah, he didn't get as jowly. I mean, his face kind of shrank in around his skull. His nose did not get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Most people's noses do not get bigger like that.
Picard's the Patrick Stewart's neck seemed to get really long. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I feel like we've seen this actress in a Star Trek episode before, and I can't think of which one.
Oh yeah, I'll do some quick. Jennifer Nash, I think, is her name. I was doing some quick Googling before the episode. Let me take a look. Anyway, while I'm searching that, Picard in the new series, Picard, his tone of his voice and the tenor is completely off. Like his voice does not match his body anymore.
No.
When you hear Picard, you think deep baritone, speaking with confidence, delivering lines almost. And this new Picard just sounds like an old man kind of processing as he talks, kind of jumping over his emotional reactions, which is, I really think I want to look into, is that what Patrick Stewart intended, or is that what he's capable of as an elderly actor now?
I would imagine it's the latter. I think it's kind of, oh man, this is what HD does. Like you can really tell that hair is just attached to the side of his head. I think that Picard was Patrick Stewart saying, I'm about to be in my 80s, but I still want to have like regular acting, but I don't want to go and audition for stuff. What can I do? And it was like, somebody said, well, you can always go back to being Captain Picard. And that's where he's landed. And it looks like he's going to be back as Professor X in Doctor Strange too. So that'll be interesting.
So here's your answer to your question. Jennifer Nash, born May 19th, 1966. So she's 55 years old. So she is playing in The Inner Light. Her brother, Marcus Nash, played young Jean-Luc Picard in the episode Tapestry. Huh. So what a small world.
Indeed.
So she is a casting director right now. And she, let's see, what did she do? Good old IMDb. Let's see where she was at.
So she was 25 or 26 when she filmed this episode.
Right. So this telescope here, I can't remember the name of it, but it is the type of telescope that amateur observers would build.
Nice.
There is a formal, there's a formal name.
Makes me think of the book Anathem by can't think of the guy's name, but he wrote Snow Crash and Cryptonomicon.
Dobsonian reflector, a design popular among home telescope builders. So that's kind of the things I like about this show that they get right, is they kind of stop and think just a little bit about what they want to do. They're looking old. Old people looking old. Not so good.
That's actually Patrick Stewart's son there.
No kidding.
Yep.
I've heard this. What's his name?
I am not sure.
Oh man. Guest stars. Let's see here.
I'm gonna be
Daniel Stewart.
Yeah. I'm gonna be a creeper and be like the future Lady Stewart at this time was 16 years old. No, 14.
Oh man.
He was 13 or 14. But good for her.
Oh mercy. So looking at this, Daniel Stewart, he's 55, right? In this, he's about 12 years older, 13 years older than me. So as a young boy watching this, I would have not been able to tell you that gentleman right there was 13 years older than me. Because you remember when you're a kid, like all adults are ancient.
Yeah, all adults are just adults.
Yeah. Or which also reminds me the funny thing that children go through with time compression is do you remember those Deep Space Nine episodes where they went back to 2024 to the districts?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was watching that this morning, and they said when Sascha said, "What year is this? 2024?" I just had to pause it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's in 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And with the war on homelessness that's going on, that's actually not too far off where we could go.
And they're back on in Picard. They're in 2024 right now also.
Oh, are they? Oh,
yep.
Okay.
And they have the sanctuary districts.
Oh, there's the I'm not gonna listen to you, bureaucrat.
Yep.
So Picard, he's got a novel, or not a novel, a book of ideas. And it seems like Picard is basically confirming what the government already knew. Which so in a way, Picard becomes that conspiracy theory lunatic who kind of loses his patience.
Yeah.
Which actually is the one consistent thing I've seen with this character through all the journeys through being an old man. Picard is always grumpy that something's happening and nobody recognizes it, so he's going to go out and fix it on his own.
This might be the difference between him and Kirk, is that if Kirk wouldn't have gotten to that point. He would have been like, his deal would have been like, why do we need a council? Why do we have to respect somebody that doesn't have our best interest at heart?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this on our own. And if the guy was like, we don't have any escape plan, Kirk would have been like, I don't accept that.
Oh, his wife is dying.
Sisko would have, rather than trying to create an autonomous community, his whole deal would have been to really push against the people that were telling him no.
Mm-hmm.
And Janeway, it would have been like Worf, where it's like, if we're the only community here, nobody else is going to need water, and we can have all the water we
want. Oh, Janeway. There's the right way, the wrong way, and the Janeway.
Yep.
So in this scene a few minutes back when Picard was arguing with the bureaucrat, did you notice the size of the community tree was much larger?
Yes, but it's also a dead tree.
It looked very dead, and I was wondering if you had caught that.
I did.
So the society just isn't making it. I bet you everybody in this simulation are vegetarians then.
It looked like it. I mean, that was the food that they had, although it looked like they had a cheese platter.
Oh. Well, it's a special event. That might be like luxury cheese.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, it looked like the food that they offered people was a lot of like root vegetables and stuff.
I tell you one thing, TV deaths are so funny, but how lucky is this character to have been there the moment she passes away? She's looking in his eyes and out she goes.
Yeah.
That's I've experienced something similar to that, and I tell you it's not as dramatic as television.
Yeah.
It's actually much more peaceful.
Yeah. Um, I think that they did the Noonien and Sung thing with Picard here by, really just caking on the makeup.
Yeah.
And I mean that's kind of how you had to do it then. You can deep fake now, but yeah, he's losing his hair the same way his dad is old Daniel Stewart over there.
Yeah, he would make a great Da Vinci right there.
Yeah.
Picard. Oh, I got to look up Mr. Stewart Jr. here and see what kind of things he's done in his career,
I
because
don't believe he's an actor.
all right. Well, he was in a show called Space Above and Beyond.
I own all of on DVD, believe it or not.
Really?
I haven't watched all of it, but I have it. It's neat. It's a Space Marines show.
Oh, okay.
I'll loan it to you sometime. It is actually a neat show.
Nice. Yeah, no, didn't really do a lot of TV. I mean, just a few things here or there, but nothing big. Huh. Well, good for him. He's finding his own way.
And this is where all of the people speak to Picard and tell him, what his role was in preserving their civilization. And this, if this had been voluntary, this would have been a dream come true for Picard. As it is, he really feels the emotion of it. It's now less about science than it is about who the people were.
Yeah.
He crossed the frontier of love, which we now know that he never crossed in his actual life. He did duty before he always chose duty before matters of the heart.
And here he was stuck in a world where he could not choose duty.
Yeah.
He is realizing that he is the probe, more or less. He is that someone that the probe is trying to contact. I also want to say I really love the blue filter here to kind of demonstrate that there's something wrong with the environment. Usually I hate it when they use color filters to change like the time of day or different planets, but here it works really well. His dead wife came back. Yay.
It's like, here's all the characters of the program you didn't interact with.
This is
it's like, I thought they were NPCs. Nope. Game over, man. Game over.
Oh, and then he turns and looks at the rocket, and it's going off to meet him.
Yep, in 1,000 years.
And only when I saw this rocket go up did I realize as a child how technologically unadvanced this culture was compared to, members of the Federation. I mean, they were still using chemical rockets to get stuff up into orbit. This thing may have been traveling for a very long time just to get to where it is today. So did they actually talk about how old it was or how long ago?
1,000 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The sun went nova. Now, this is where Picard and Data now have something in common. Is, well, number one, Picard is the repository, or was. I want to say that when he gave Sarek's memories to Spock, that he lost Sarek's memories.
Mm-hmm.
But he was for a while, the repository for all of Sarek's memories. And now he's the repository of the memories of this colony, which so is Data.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But the difference is Data was not a participant in those memories. whereas Picard was. So one was novelized and the other one was databasey.
Yeah.
I love how he's still trying to recognize what's going on. So I'm going to talk about something here that people may not agree with. And this is not based on my own personal beliefs, but just things that I've heard. So I've been listening to a lot of like life after death stories, crossing from this mortal realm to the other. And for the people who came back, there's a common theme saying that they lost perception of time. So being out of body, seeing the light or being surrounded with love and color, everyone said that the amount of time had passed could have been a second or it could have been a millennia. Like there was just no concept of time. But when they came back, they realized that they had all of the time that could exist and that they chose to snap back into their bodies and continue living. And I'm just thinking about how disorienting that would be to lose a concept of time and then to wake up and reorient yourself to this new experience that Picard has gone through. Or even O'Brien when he comes out of his jail cell. So it's, can you imagine living a life where you choose to undergo experiences where your concept of time is messed with? I think is kind of where I'm going with.
Yeah, it would be hard to do. I just now noticed that Picard has the bust of Shakespeare back there that was the entrance to the Batcave on the 1966 Batman show.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Oh, there's our right. What do they call it? A Rysian flute? Ryskian?
It's just a flute.
A flute. I do know that the song was based off of a Beatles song, also called "The Inner Light," written by George Harrison, based on verses of Tao Te Ching. So it was very Taoist. So go figure.
Nice. Now he's going to toot his flute.
Yay! I had tears, man. I was crying. That song at the end really drove it home for me.
That's good. It's good that we feel ways about things.
It's not every day that a Star Trek episode has you thinking about the human condition. A lot of Star Trek episodes are very circumstantial of like, oh, well, we got into this kind of situation, so it's going to have this kind of result with feel goods. But here, all we could really do is endure.
Mm-hmm.
We watched a society live and die, and there was pain with that. Look at that. That was the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
I give it that one 5 out of 5.
For sure, 5 out of 5. This is probably one of the better Star Trek franchise episodes that operates outside of the Star Trek world. So what do I mean by that? So the every now and then Star Trek will have an episode where it just completely removes the character from the Enterprise, from whatever scenario they're in, and puts them in a completely new sci-fi world that they have to navigate and endure. We see that in Deep Space Nine, where Ben Sisko has that vision of the 1950s as a comic book writer. We have those episodes about the one I mentioned earlier in DS9, where they travel back to the sanctuary districts, where what's happening in the episode really has nothing to do with the Federation or the characters. They're just flung into it. So I think this is probably one of the better portrayals of that type of episode.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, for that, 5 out of 5. Excellent writing. It's right where it needs to be. So
very much.
We've got coming up next. Speaking of throwing Star Trek cast members into a non-Star Trek related setting, we are about to meet Mark Twain.
Yes.
When I had first watched this, I'll save this for a commentary when we formally when we formally record and review this with your dad, by the way. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with him. Is that at the time I thought Star Trek had jumped the shark when they brought out Mark Twain.
Huh.
I was afraid that they were just getting silly desperate, but it actually turned out pretty good. But you know, when you see Mark Twain show up in Star Trek, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What's good? Did the holodeck stop working? What's going on?
No, to me, it's the ultimate time travel setup. It even has the actor who accused Marty McFly of stealing Biff's wallet in it. So.
Oh, really? I'll have to go back and look at that.
He's the guy that's tried to kick Data out of the party that Guinan and Mark Twain are at.
Ah, yes.
Resolve of, sir, if your name is not on the list, I will have to ask you to leave. Madam Guinan has discovered she has many friends in the city of San Francisco.
Very nice. Okay, well, that just kind of wraps it up because we got to save this positive energy for Time's Arrow. Well, with that in mind, thank you so much, everybody, for listening along to this wonderful episode. We hope that you join us for Time's Arrow. So with that, have a wonderful day. Music provided by LoFiGirl.com. Artists include Tenno, Daydreaming, BVG in Mondberg, Insomnia, WYS, Snowman, Be Calm and Banks, Because. Episode cover art created by Matthew Kirschner. Podcast logo and main cover art provided by David Clawwitter. Audio engineering done by Sascha Schaudies.